There we go. Hi, Andy. How are you?
Hi, Jane. I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's so good to
Great.
be with you.
Yeah, you too.
I don't know if you know this. I don't think you do, but it was because of you that I even started my channel. Well,
Great. Great. Yeah.
just a message
Wow.
that you had given me once. I mean, I knew that this was inevitable at some point, but
Sure.
you encouraged me, so thank
Oh
you.
well, I'm very glad, and you're very welcome. We're all agents of the spirit, aren't we? So when we inspire each other, that's just a great thing, really. Yeah. I'm so pleased. Yeah.
Thank you. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those of my watchers that don't, my viewers that haven't visited you?
Okay. Well, come and visit me anytime. But yeah, I come from the north of England, and now I live in Wales, and I guess that's really the key thing in my spiritual, where the spiritual journey joins in with the life journey. Is I found myself in Wales, which is like right opposite, right at the opposite end of the country to where I grew up, and so I was interested in mystical things and the tarot, and somebody suggested that I go to Glastonbury tour with them. And there's a very famous British pop festival called Glastonbury, but this is a few miles away, Glastonbury Village. And it's a 5,000-year-old man made mound. It used to have a church at the top, and the church fell down, but the tower is still there. So it's this kind of big mound with a tower on the top. And very, very magical place. Like I said, I was interested in the tarot, and went up there. And when I came down and went home again, got some cards out, and I found I could do readings, and I was getting things right, and my psychic senses had awakened. And it was, through meditation and people that I met, I decided I would move to where I live now. And the place I found is kind of halfway between Carmarthen, which is a Welsh word meaning the place of Merlin, and so I'm halfway between that and Preseli, where the blue stones in the middle of Stonehenge came from Preseli. And
Mm.
we know that Merlin walked the roads, or maybe rode on a horse, or so, I don't know, whatever they did in those days. But we know that Merlin passed this place many times. So it's a very magical place. I was incredibly lucky to get it. And it's, happenstance. When happenstance kicks in, you sort of know things are meant to be. So here I am, and I've been a psychic all this time. I learned mediumship along the way, and so I have a fair bit of experience. Not sure how much skill I have, but I have a fair bit of experience, and it feels like it's all meant to be, And it's just wonderful to get into mediumship in the psychic realms and actually see that happenstance again and again as you go along with it, and to get to know who your spirit guides are and things like that. And then, of course, to come into YouTube, and I didn't know this was the kind of work was meant to do on YouTube. I tried all kinds of things, and I've been on YouTube since 2007, and it
Wow.
was only in about 2017 I actually started getting views, and that's when I started doing the readings, and astrology as well. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but I didn't. But yeah, that's kind of been my journey to get here. I trained as a priest at one point as well. I guess that's worth mentioning. I was going to be a Christian priest, but I'm just a little bit too out there for that. I couldn't finish the course.
Well, I mean, when spirit calls, we answer in whichever form that takes. Did you have any experience like as a child? Did you like I always felt different then. I saw people all around my bed and but I didn't know that they were angels. I connected dots later in life.
Hmm.
Have you had any of those
Yeah.
experiences where you yeah.
Yeah, sure. I actually, as a child, they frightened me so much, and that they kind of stopped happening. And when I was on the first course I did to do with mediumship, I explained that to one of the teachers, and they said, "Well, when it's very terrifying, it can close the third eye a bit, but
Mm.
spirit, being the loving beings that they are, they will just kind of stop showing you these things and will just leave you alone." And so, since the first couple of experiences, it's tended to be dreams. But as a very small child, preschool child, my mother used to take me to a play group in a community place, community centre, and it had a stage in it, as they often do, and we were never allowed to go up on the stage. All the children playing, it was strictly not allowed on the stage, so we used to go up there anyway, of course. And there was must have been a spirit child. I didn't know what it was, and it didn't scare me at the time. But a ball would roll to us, and we'd roll it back, and then it would come back. And this is all the children. There's 4 or 5 of us maybe would be up on the stage doing this until we got discovered. And we just thought this must be the greatest hide and seek champion ever. But but when I look back on it, there really was no one there that you could see, and yet we were playing games with somebody. So that was quite something. And then the thing that really freaked me out was a child appeared at my bedroom window, very sort of, well, late at night. To me, it might have been like 7 p.m. or something at that age, but it was dark outside anyway. And that frightened the hell out of me. He had a very big swollen head, and I've since learned that this was hydrocephalus, which is that terrible condition, and that must have been what had actually ended his life in a human body. And his name was Sean. He spelled his name out as well. I particularly remember that. And I thought his name was Sean because it was Sean,
Oh, yeah.
So, and I was terrified, terrified by that. And sure, I always felt different, and the other kids throughout my whole school time, throughout most of my life, actually, other people have thought I was a bit different, maybe a little bit strange. But the people who matter, I always get on with the people who matter, and I guess that's all that matters, really. Because I'm sure we're all brought together, somehow. We talk about soul group, don't we? And I
Mhm.
really think that's what it's all about. And I feel rather sorry for people who maybe never find that soul group because they're concerned with always being the same or being, normal, whatever normal is. Um, yeah. So those experiences were sort of quite crazy, and I regret allowing my third eye to close as much as it did, really. But as a small child, what do you know? What can you do? When I was about 10 years old, I used to go to a Christian church. There was one right next door to where I lived, but I went to a different one actually. And I was always fascinated by the organ,
Mm.
and the organist was a friendly guy who would let me sit and play it. I was too small; my feet wouldn't reach down to the pedal keyboard at that age, and
Mm.
it had 3 keyboards. I couldn't reach the top one.
Right.
Um, but I didn't question it at the time. But I just used to sit there and play hymn tunes and pieces of snippets from pieces of classical music that I'd heard, and I never had lessons or anything like that. And I did actually, I was still a church organist until I think 2013 was when I finally stopped doing it. And I, never learned to read music or anything. And when I look back on that, I'm sure there must be kind of a connection. And if you ever meet a pipe organ player, it's very, very common thing that they'll say, well, I saw an organ when I was a small child and I just had to do it. And it doesn't appeal to that many people, really. That in a way, I suppose, is the evidence that it's something you're called to do. So, one way or another, I've ended up where I am, but I'm sure it's where I'm meant to be. And the thing I've really loved about this whole journey, but particularly the YouTube and the internet side of things, is just getting closer and closer to people who understand these things. And the other side of that is, of course, I've got further and further away from people who don't understand these things, but it all kind of consolidates who I am and what I'm about, and I'm absolutely loving the life. Yeah.
I love that.
Mm.
I, this is about you, but I will say, as a child, we had an organ in our house,
Mm-hmm.
and I taught myself how to play the organ. It
Right.
wasn't a church organ, it was just, and I
Yeah.
couldn't reach the pedals either, but I didn't care, and I taught myself. So that's kind of interesting. That's something
Yeah.
I didn't know we had that in common.
See, yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but there's like psychic waves on there that trying to bring people together. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe we are divinely guided, right?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and speaking of divine guidance, any of that, I want to ask you about this notion that we are star seeds.
Mm.
And could divine guidance come from being a star seed? Or I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, if you have any?
Well, I, I don't have too many. The ones I have are quite profound, I think. But yeah, I can't really explain it, and I don't really think any of us can. But uh, like all of us, actually, even people who don't believe in these things, I look up at the night sky when the stars are out, and it's one of the great things of living here, right in the deep countryside, is it is pitch black at night, and you can see the stars. And I look up there, and I feel a connection, and I think everybody does. I don't know anybody who's ever looked up and seen the stars and said they felt absolutely nothing. Um, in kind of trance sessions and past life regression work and things like that I've been involved in, for myself, I've often come up with a connection to the Pleiades, and I feel sure actually that the Pleiadians are very active. And I don't know that they would kind of send aliens to walk on the earth. I actually think that we all carry something of that. And I'm sure the universe is very, very responsible for what goes on Earth. Any scientist would tell you, even though they don't really know how the universe began, any scientist will tell you that a planet is created from whatever's going on in the universe. And I feel sure that the human race, I think we're probably all star seeds, actually, unless there's something I'm missing. I can't really say a lot more than that about it, Jane, just because it's such a vast subject, and it sort of involves information and things which are hidden from our everyday eyes. But I think we get closer and closer to it the more we pursue these things, and the more we walk on this path. Yeah.
I agree. I
Mm.
agree. And I just want you to know, if you see me going like this, whenever
Yeah.
you or I say anything, that means you're on the nose. In America,
Okay.
you're on the money, you're on the nose, you're right on.
Right. Okay.
That just
Yeah.
happens to me. So if you see me
Right.
doing that, it's not because my nose itches, it's because you've said something
Okay.
profound.
It's funny, my nose is itching now you've said that. Yeah.
I've had people in my chat going, "Oh, great, thanks, Jane. Now my nose itches."
That it all shows the connection, see? Yeah.
Right? Well, it's like yawning. They say yawning's contagious. Thankfully, I don't catch it from my cats. But anyway. All right. So the other thing, oh, you do astrology.
Yeah, it's not my strongest thing that I do, but I've been interested in it really very long time. And when I first, when you start working with the spirit world and spirit guides, it's kind of difficult to believe, and there were about 5 different spiritualist mediums who told me that they were sure I was one and that I would develop it. And
Hmm.
I didn't really feel like I ever would. I couldn't believe it. I felt so distant from being able to do that. I didn't think it would ever happen, and it did. But in the meantime, I really liked being on psychic websites, and I liked psychic people. And I thought, well, astrology is something you can just learn out of books, and you observe it happening and having a spiritual effect on people, but you can actually learn it from books. So that's when I started studying astrology, just because I wanted to be, in the club, really. So as I've gone more into mediumship, I've done less of that. But yeah, I watch the stars every day. I It's my goal to put a little piece on Facebook every day, and Instagram as well, with a little map, a chart wheel of what's happening, and a little explanation. Sadly, the last year and a half, I've hardly ever done that. I was doing it all last week, and then this week stuff happened, and I didn't really get time to do it. But that's what I want to do. That's kind of my affirmation of what I'd like to do. And I produce birth charts as well, natal charts for people, because that's again, it's something you look up, it's something you calculate. It doesn't sap your energy of mediumship or anything like that. But yeah, I love astrology, and I see causes for all sorts of effects that happen in the world. Um, when I saw my own birth chart, it blew me away. And when just about anyone sees their birth chart for the first time, it really gives them quite a thrill, because suddenly there's something that's actually come from my computer, but it's come from literature, and I
Hmm.
think that it goes back to about 3000 BC in ancient Babylon. And they read their star chart, their birth chart, and I think, wow, yes, that's me. And 90% of it will hit people right in the face as wow. Um, so it's a great thing. I'm sure it is a part of the psychic realm of things, but at the same time, it's something you can calculate. It's remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time I grew up in Los Angeles. So we
Mm.
never saw stars in Los Angeles except for the ones that are on TV that are walking by, movie stars
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I went to camp and I was up on a mountain. It was in Arizona, and it felt like you could just reach up and touch it was a blanket of stars, and I was
Ah,
fascinated.
yeah.
Absolutely, utterly fascinated. And clouds fascinate me. I love
Mhm.
looking at clouds, and I will name them. Like my husband and I were driving the other day, and I'm like, "Oh, look at that cloud. It's a good boy." And he's like, "Good boy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, don't you see it? It's a dog with his paw up, ready to shake. There's his tail. He was being a good boy."
Yeah.
I don't know, All
Mm.
right. So, what about mm, tarot versus oracle versus mediumship? Are
Mhm.
they all basically the same?
Well, I think they're different expressions of the same thing, really. So what we're dealing with, I feel, is universal knowledge, and it's much greater than anything that can fit into the human mind. And this is why it takes people a long time to establish contact with this. Like, people sometimes say, "Can I tell them the name of their spirit guide?" And sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But it's a very slow trickle of information, because it's so much bigger than the human mind can cope with. So as it comes in, for us to be able to deal with it, I think we have to compartmentalize it, so that we can see that one thing is different from another thing, and actually it ends up all being part of the same thing. um For me, I think mediumship is a little different, because with mediumship, you would always want to connect to a person's spirit guides if you possibly can,
Mhm.
and it's good to give evidence, give someone a name or something that actually proves to them that you're connected. Um, but the tarot and the oracle, I think it's just the way they've evolved. They've evolved at different times, and they've come along in different ways. In the 1980s, when I got interested in tarot, there must have been oracle decks around then, but they weren't. I didn't see any when I was out shopping for tarot cards. So there was never anything, really on offer at the time. So I started reading the tarot, and they were tarot cards not even as detailed as the Rider-Waite, to be honest. They're just sort of very basic symbols, and you had to learn them all. But all the different meanings and everything that you can learn with the tarot all go back to, you probably know about this, but it's, I think, about the 15th century. Rich people would commission a set of drawings or paintings just that they would look through, and they came to think they were being drawn to a particular one because that's what they needed to be thinking about today. That was quite a departure from the Christian way, where all the churches, even back then, would have certain parts of the Bible that you had to read on a certain day, and like at Easter there'd be certain things. And so with the tarot and with these decks of pictures that people were having made, it was coming up much more randomly. And of course, as time has gone on, the tarot has developed its traditional story through the major arcana and then the different meanings in the suits. And oracle is just, it's very free of all that. It's much more accessible, I feel, because if spirit want to work with somebody, they will work with somebody. And this is a problem sometimes in the spiritualist church movement. You get people who come straight in off the street and can do it, and other people think, well, I've been coming to this church for years and I'm not allowed to do that. So, and it can get difficult like that. Likewise with the tarot, and actually it's quite real with the tarot, I suppose, because with 70 cards to understand, no one's going to pick it up really on the first day. But with oracle decks, you sort of can, and people who are gifted and have the gift can actually work with an oracle deck, and nobody can really tell them they're getting it wrong, particularly. It's what they see in a picture is what they see in a picture. Some people feel that can leave room for fakery. I don't really think that's going to be the case. I don't see why anybody would want to work with anything spiritual unless they had some kind of spiritual motivation to do that. I guess the tarot is very directive, and when we pull a tarot card, if you pulled a card and showed it to me, I'd know what that card was saying. And likewise, if I showed one to you, you'd know what it was saying, because of what we've learned about the tarot. But still, tarot readers are always going to be able to give some interpretation. And I'm sure then you would give me some more insight than I was just seeing in the card. Mm-hmm. So that's there with the tarot. But I think oracle is just much more accessible. And, the pictures are beautiful, aren't they? And a great many of the decks. And I don't know, they're just lovely things to have. They're a joy to behold. And it allows you also, I guess, to focus on certain things. The two decks that are very popular at the moment, and I have used them both in my videos, Work Your Light by Rebecca Campbell and Keepers of the Light by Kyle Gray. And it's all about the light, the light that we all, because we all actually reflect a bit of the light of the universe, a bit of the light of spirit as we, go through our lives. And even when things aren't so happy, we're kind of reflecting just the fact that life isn't always easy. And also, when spark is dulled a little bit, it does actually draw in light from other people. So it's all so much
Mm.
about the light. But, you know, there are other decks. I've got Talking to Heaven, Messages from Animal Spirit Guides, the Moon decks, so many different decks, you know, angel decks,
Yeah,
so many different expressions of it. Um, I think all the different kinds of tarot cards there are all pretty much coming back to the same thing. I love to use Tarot in Wonderland because it's actually it's based on Alice in Wonderland, and those books were written by a guy when he was in a town called Sunderland in the north of England, and that's where I grew up. And a lot of it was inspired by things he saw in the museum. Like the grinning Cheshire Cat was a big stuffed lion, and I've seen it, you know. So I feel a connection to that deck. And, you know, the images in that are kind of different. And the Four of Swords is often a bone of contention because the Four of Swords in Tarot in Wonderland just means you should take a rest and not worry about things. There are deeper things ascribed to it in other decks and in the more traditional decks. But generally speaking, you know, the sun is always going to mean what the sun means. The death card is always what it is, you know, and you get into an oracle deck, things are just that little bit more random than that. And I think that actually allows spirit a free hand in how they guide us, you know.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
that's
have
kind of
my,
my take.
Marie Hansen deck that I've had since the 1980s.
Yeah.
That's the deck I started out with, excuse me, which
Mm.
is I'm I got so Rider-Waite based, even though it's a Marie Hansen, it's still Rider-Waite based,
Mhm.
that I have a hard time using any other, divination system of
Sure.
a tarot because I will always fall back on my Rider-Waite mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though, the good tarot, for example, I just got I've been using the good tarot lately, and it's not Rider-Waite based at all. Really, I mean, it kind of is, but the meanings are completely different. They don't use
Yeah.
reversals. So I understand that. Yeah. And I think I use oracles for myself and not when I'm reading for others because they will they will lead me to a picture that I will be drawn into,
Mhm.
and so I can go, oh, and then I don't have to read the book. Like, I've been using this one just for myself,
Mhm.
the empathic, and I'm just going to show you, like a card. So, well, that one's pretty easy, but like, so it's like, okay, crown chakra, right? It says so,
Yeah.
like, you're kind of using your crown chakra, or maybe that's blocked, or maybe it means to open that up. Um, here's a chameleon, like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
about blending in. So, um,
Yeah.
like in like here, like, okay, so I want to show something that would uh, so like if you look at this card,
Okay.
it says purity, but you can whatever it is you're going through, you can draw your own. I mean, it has a guidebook, but I can look at this and I can go, that looks like my artwork that I do, because
Sure.
I scry, for one thing.
Right. Uh-huh.
Um, so anyway, somebody, this deck got passed to me because they didn't jive with it. And I'm so glad they did. And I didn't use it for the longest time. And then one
Yeah.
day it called me. Speaking of decks calling to you,
Mhm.
how about you?
Well, I'll come back to. I'll show. This is the box it comes in. Tarot in Wonderland. And it grabbed me in so many ways. There was a YouTube reader using it at the time, and I just had to order a copy, and I've come to really love it. But yeah, I mean, I was I was fairly Rider Waite based, but the first deck that I ever bought was the Ancient Tarot of Marcel,
Mm.
which is, it's a really, really old. It's quite medieval in the way it looks, and that to me always felt like the real authentic one. But I don't think any of them are the authentic one. I think that they've all got a lot to recommend them. And in more recent times, one of our friends on my channel, Merlin's Mountain, Liz, she's got a channel called Liz Crafts, and she unboxes decks, and she wanted to get a copy of this as well, actually. But it was I saw someone unboxing it. It wasn't, I was going to say it was Liz, but it wasn't, because Liz did this one afterwards. But I saw someone unbox this, and I was really, really drawn to it. The cards are actually, they're not very, those are probably the only two really colourful cards in the whole deck. I almost feel like they coloured them so they could put something on the box. I'm very drawn to that deck, and I use it myself quite a lot. I don't tend to do readings with it, just because it's I don't know. I'm not 100% sure of the meanings it's trying to convey yet, until I learn it some more. Also, one of my viewers called Adrienne, who's one of my moderators, AQ, she actually sent me a wonderful deck, the Hybrid Tarot, and it's a hybrid between tarot, oracle, and there's some Lenormand in it. There's numerology in it. It conjures up all kinds of things, and every card has several different meanings associated with it. I love that, but that's going to take me a long time before I can read it without going back to the book,
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm constantly, I will pull a card if it's and I'll be like, so okay, so this is number 27, so that's an 11. It's like,
Yeah.
or that's a whatever.
9.
It's a 9. It's a 9. So I'll be like, okay, yeah. So then you bring in the numerology. It's sort of like it's all there, and
Sure,
yeah.
You can go even deeper. I mean, you could say, well, I thought it was 11, but it's a 9. So is this 9/11? And is,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you would have been drawn to say that for a reason, Yeah.
True. I also found with the more, I mean, I've been reading for people for 40 years, but mostly friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I found that when I started doing a lot of readings every day, I found certain patterns denoted certain things. Like if somebody's asking for a relationship reading and I get 2 3s of anything, I'll be like, I think there's 3 people in this relationship. So have you ever noticed things like that? So as you are doing, so let's say you're doing things for yourself, but then you start reading for more and more people. Have you connected any of those dots too?
I have, but I find people can be quite resistant. And that's kind of I think that's another good thing about the oracle, because with the tarot, a lot of people feel like they already know the meanings, and they will say, "Oh no, it doesn't mean that because I think it means this." And for example, one of the first mediumship readings that I ever did, I was on this English website called Psychic Knight, Knight with a K, like the Knights of Camelot. It's run by a British medium called Michelle Knight. She's got a YouTube channel actually, and she's very big over here. And so I was reading on there, and she had paid professional readers, but she was quite happy for people to just read for each other on there. And somebody asked me for a reading and was going to pay and everything. And I picked up that well, she was in a relationship, and the guy had a son by another lady who'd gone, and wanted to know there was something wrong, and she couldn't find out what it was. And through quite a lot of different, this was early in my career, and I was just going through all my different decks trying to pick up on, find something, that made sense. And it became clearer and clearer to me that the son had a problem with drugs, and that
Mm,
the father had a problem with softer drugs, but was kind of codependent with the son, and they were both trying to keep this from her. So I told her that, and she absolutely refused to believe it. So I sent her money back. I didn't want to, uh,
right.
I just didn't feel good taking money. And about 6 months later, she emailed me, and she'd sent me the money back, and she'd found out that that's actually, what it was. So that joining the dots it can be quite alarming to some people. I don't think people expect us to be able to do it, but yeah, that I guess is the psychic side of it. And it comes to us because we notice numbers matching up. We notice certain themes coming up again and again. And we remember readings we've done in the past where something meant something different to what we thought at first. And so that's all kind of in the medium, in the reader's toolbox, as it were. And I don't think people expect that to be in our toolboxes at all. But it is, and I think that's where the psychic side of things really begins to kick in, because that really is at the level of a sixth sense. Because the main thing, I guess, is, sometimes we start joining the dots and we think, no, it's not in that direction. And actually, no, it turns out to be something else. And we kind of know that as we're working, don't we? I guess you find the same, Jane.
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, somebody that I read for a lot, my dear friend, she's also a reader, and so I will be reading for her, and she'll be like, "No, but this means what I see is this," and I'm like, "Okay, that's great, I love it, but
Yeah.
you did ask me, and I'm using my own intuition." So
Yeah.
therefore, what I did was when she would read for me, I would say, use your intuition. Don't just look at the cards and do this. Please use your intuition. And so therefore, between her and I, now we have a very nice back and forth with card reading,
Yeah. Yeah.
with reading for each other. But we had to learn
Sure.
that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the people we read for are on a path just like we are. And, when we do a reading, that's our paths converging. And that's happening for a reason, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done
Mm.
a lot of meditating and trying to meet my guides, and my guides are actually just beings of light. They are light
Sure.
bodies of all
Yeah.
different colors. And I asked
Right.
them, please show me who you are. And they said, if we showed you what we really look like, you would be too afraid. It would freak you out. So
Yeah.
they show up as, I call them the knitting circle, and they all show up as little old ladies sitting around a table and
Yeah.
they're knitting.
Yeah.
So
Great. That's
it
great.
yeah, so
Yeah.
spirit truly only gives you what you can handle.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's great, and I sometimes think they show in particular ways just for their own reasons, or for but it's always something to do with being helpful to us.
Mhm.
There was a chap I sat in a circle with. We had a development circle at one of the spiritualist churches, and one night I took a service actually because I go around the churches and do that, and I was conducting a service, and he was there. And he'd told me this story before, but I didn't really think of it at the time. But I was wearing a checkered red jacket at the time. There's not much fashion sense I've got, have I? But that's what I was wearing. And I said, I keep being drawn to my checked jacket. I'm thinking Rupert the Bear. Do you have Rupert the Bear in USA?
I I'm thinking Berenstein Bear. I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, I've gone into a classic English thing there. It's
Okay,
just
sorry.
Rupert the Bear. He's kind of like a Berenstein Bear, actually, but it's from the Victorian times,
Okay.
you know. And he wears this red tartan outfit and a yellow checked scarf. And I said, why am I seeing Rupert the Bear? And the guy said, well, do you not remember what I told you about and yeah, then it came to me, yeah, because he told me. And when he was a very, very small child, he used to get visited by Rupert the Bear. And Rupert the Bear would tell him things, and he would just kind of know things. And it freaked his family out because he would know all these things that he wasn't supposed to know. And he could name people who'd passed away long before he was born. And it was all, and all it was, Rupert the Bear would come in at night and tuck him in bed. So that spirit guide was showing us Rupert the Bear because he didn't want to hurt his feelings. Um, Likewise, my first mediumship teacher was a guy who had a particular connection with Native American spirit guides. And as the first awareness that I had of actually what my guide looked like and what his energy felt like was very Native American. And he turned out to be a medicine man. But of course, he could be anything at all, you know. That idea of being a medicine man, as much of a holy and spiritual significance as it has, is actually that is specific to the Native American culture. But it does actually, you know, once someone's on the other side, and as it were, they can they're just pure beings of light, you know. And I think with you seeing them as light, I think you're actually seeing them as they are. I think that's very, very advanced, Jane, actually. I really do. But yeah, I think they'll show us particular things. And I felt like $1 million that I had a Native American guide as well, you know. I also have a guide who her name is Rosalie, and she works with me on the live streams a lot. And she shows as a gypsy lady who worked around Europe in fairs doing quick fire readings for people. And she came in around the time I started doing live streams on YouTube. And she has a great knack for just one reading after another and kind of getting it right. But at the end of the day, she is now in the light, you know. If I went, and I actually have, I know people who are Romany traveler people and have traveling fairs and that kind of thing. But when I kind of start talking to them about psychic stuff and mediumship, they just say, oh, we only work with our own. And they will not share that with me at all. Not in a negative, unfriendly way, but it's just, you know, they keep it religiously within the Romany community. And yet here I have this Romany lady guiding me because now she's in the light and she doesn't have to be one thing or another. And if we resonate together, she'll work with me. But again, you know, I really needed a guide who could do quick fire readings, and I'm all the more confident in her because I know that's what she did in her earthly life. So yeah, I think they can. I think they can wear clothes of many colors, you know. But I'm sure they're all just beings of light. That's, you know, I think in a
Yeah.
very profound way, that's what they are, you know, pure light.
Right. Well, yeah, I did a past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
And in my past life regression, I went to before I was incarnated, and I was a being of light, and I was floating around, and my hypnotist who was doing this, you know, who was guiding me, it's like I didn't want to leave there. I did not want to leave there.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful, and everybody was just this beautiful expression of love and light, and nobody needed to talk. Everybody just communicated, and I learned that we are everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and we are everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
That was what I took from that. So
Right. Yeah, you know, if I think of that medicine man guide who was first with me, I was talking to my teacher about him, and I said I'm aware of him, and I didn't know he was a medicine man. My teacher told me because he was wearing like an animal skin with a head over his head, and he carried certain things. And my teacher said, "Oh, that's a medicine man." And I said, "Well, my teacher said he's obviously giving you all the psychic messages that you give to people and connecting it, their spirit guides." And I said, "No, he never says anything. He's just there." And he puts his hand on my shoulders. And my teacher said, "Well, where do you think you're getting this stuff from? You know, he's talking into your thoughts, not, you know, not like having a mouth conversation, you know." And yeah, so true. Yeah.
Exactly, and I got big chills with that, just so you know. I've been getting a lot of chills,
Yeah,
um,
great.
with
That's, you
everything
know, yeah,
that you've been saying. I'm sitting here with just
right.
chills. So you are very powerful.
Yeah.
Is this medicine person that was that Twig brother, or was that somebody else?
Well, he's Twig Brother is kind of the he's kind of a step up. I don't want to call him like a higher authority because I don't think they have a hierarchy like that. But he's kind of you know, there are different levels in the afterlife, and a soul can ascend through the levels. So Twig Brother is that bit higher up, you know. So he kind of works with me and speaks with me through other people. I don't know if you've ever come across Silver Birch. He's a famous kind of trance guide. Again, I'm into the English kind of cultural side of things here, but he's a Native American guy that used to speak through a trance medium. And he often said in his communications that actually he was communicating from somebody high in a higher up realm, and they wouldn't be able to lower their vibration enough to have a worldly conversation. But he was only one or two realms up. So the top guy could lower his vibration enough to speak to Silver Birch, and Silver Birch could lower his vibration enough to speak to us. So that's rather complicated explanation, isn't it? I'm sorry about that, but
No.
that's kind of where it's at. There's another amazing Native American guide in certainly around the British culture, and he was speaking through a trance medium called Estelle Roberts in the 1930s. She worked in UK, and there was a big revival around that time as well. And he explained through her that he had actually been in the highest realms, and there'd been a call out in 1907 our time, because there's no time with them. There'd been a call out in 1907 for people from the highest realms to come and work with people on Earth, because we were about to go into the First World War, and there'd never been a world war before, and they wanted to try and stop it. And it took them 7 years, him and a few of his friends, Red Cloud and a few of his friends, it took them 7 years to lower their vibration enough in stages to actually come and be active in the world. And actually, the First World War was very, very nearly called off. There was just too much money at stake. Everyone had put their money in, and so they had to go ahead and have that war. And of course, you know, we never really learned. You know, we people are talking about World War III now, and I have a feeling it's not going to actually come to that. You know, just at an intuitive level, I have a feeling it's not going to come to World War III, but people still worry about it, and you know, we have this in the humans. Well, not in every human being's psyche, but there'll always be some people in the world in positions of authority who want to cause these things. But sorry, I've gone right off the point. That's my whole thing about different levels of spirit guides. It's not like a hierarchy. They just kind of float higher and higher as their soul progresses, you know, and hopefully we do too. Mm,
I find that interesting, and I'm glad you went off on that little
great.
took that little pathway side. Because
Mm,
that's fascinating. Um, I know that before I do my before I do my lives, before I do anything, I call in of course, the Archangel Michael, and
mm,
um I call in the beings of light, because I do call them the beings of light. So I
mm,
imagine, and I call in the beings of light. Oh, and my higher self and my higher wisdom, because I believe that we're here, but we're also there. Because remember,
Yeah, I totally agree. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I'm like, okay,
Mm.
higher self and higher wisdom that we've gained in this Earth school, help me with this. Is really what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the beings of light who
Mm.
are my guides, or all of our guides, if I'm to be, I'm not going to claim these people just for me,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
but
Don't. Yeah. Mm.
I mean, they help me, so I appreciate that, because I do
Yeah.
feel divinely guided, because like I'll say stuff and I'll be like, where did that even come from? Have you ever surprised yourself?
Yeah, several times in this interview, actually, I've said things I didn't think I was going to say. But yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Isn't that fun? It's
Yeah,
so interesting.
it is.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah, what can we wow, okay, so we've kind of, so we've kind of talked about your favorite decks a little bit. And I want you to know, because you always call Kyle Gray's Keepers of the Light, you always call them the Ascended Masters. I
Yeah.
always call that deck the Ascended Masters. It's
Sorry.
because no, but I'm always like, oh, that Andy. I always have to show the thing. But I think because of you, I did get the Work Your Light and the Kyle Gray. And
Great
this,
decks.
yeah, they really are. Do you keep decks for yourself only?
I have some, yeah. I have them in a bread box, a bread bin container, because if I keep bread in it, I forget I've got bread, and I go and buy more bread. So I just had this bread bin, and I keep my personal decks in it. One of them is the Thoth, the Aleister Crowley deck. It scares the life out of people. I don't think he was the nicest man, to be quite honest. But he did make a very truthful and very deep study of ancient Egyptian magic. And I pretty much trust that deck. I didn't much like it to begin with, but yeah, I've more or less come to trust it. And I have one or two other decks. I still have the Ancient Tarot of Marcel, and I don't use it on YouTube because it's not very visual. I don't think people would enjoy it that much. And I haven't looked in there for a little while, but there's quite a few in there. I've picked up over time. Yeah.
Yeah, I have, because I have decks that I will only use for myself, that they don't go on the internet, or I use them just for myself and my friends.
Yeah.
Only because I don't because of the energy thing. I have one deck that's for a particular friend of mine,
Mm.
that I've had since the 1980s. That's my Marie Hansen deck. That's her deck. It's like
Oh,
I use
yeah.
that for her only. And I did the Toth deck, or Troth, or whatever, however you
Yeah.
call it. That
Off.
deck moved right through me. I bought it, I used it for a few minutes, and then I sent it on its way. I couldn't,
Yeah.
so I
Mm.
understand that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm on my second Thoth deck because I gave the first one away. It freaked me out completely. And it was just a teacher I had who said, oh, give it time and try it again. And remember that you don't have to believe everything it tells you. Use your intuition with it. And I get on with it a little bit better because of that. But it is a kind of a freaky deck, it really is. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I think I was just so Rider Waite that
Mhm.
I couldn't process it, and I think it did scare me. I mean, this was back in the 1980s that I
Yeah.
had that deck
Mhm.
moved through me. So I really don't remember too much about it. I just remember, oh, that wasn't for me.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Mm.
And then I've got certain decks for certain things too.
Yeah,
Like I don't do political reads. I don't like to do them, but I have done them, and I have a deck that's just for that,
sure. Yeah,
because it has because it has, it's the tarot of opposition. that deck. I don't know if you've seen that deck, but it
Okay.
has.
I'm not. I haven't seen it, but good. Because it's well, you mentioned the energy thing. Yeah, as you use a deck for a thing, it will build up energy around it for specifically that thing. My Tarot in Wonderland deck is. I've used it in so many videos. I've only used it once or twice in one-to-one readings, and it's kind of less powerful then.
Mhm.
I mean, one-to-one readings where someone comes to my house, or I go to their house. I nearly always use it on the internet, though. It just works, for all my internet work. So that's the one I use, absolutely. But I mean, I have some decks that I only ever used in a crystal shop. I used to work in a crystal shop well, it closed in 2012. Which was interesting because we were all really trying to manifest it to stay open, but we couldn't. And we'd all had good experiences of manifesting things before, but we couldn't keep the shop open. So it mustn't have been meant to be. But yeah, I mean, I had decks that I particularly used in that shop, and they hardly ever come out of the woodwork now because that was just, that's what they were for. That's why they came along.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I've been using. All right, I'm going to ask you one last thing, and then we'll pull some cards because we're coming up
Sure,
on an hour.
sure.
And
Yeah,
how do you feel about the because I'm all about the goddess and the divine feminine rising.
yeah,
I
yeah.
believe you even mentioned that to me once when in an
Mhm.
email when we were talking about things. I
Yeah.
believe that I was a Vestal Virgin.
Mhm.
I believe I was probably burned as a witch. So coming out and showing my face on YouTube and being a tarot card reader was very scary for me,
Sure.
but I
Yeah.
was doing it. So what are your thoughts on the divine feminine, the goddess?
Well, I feel very positive about that. Going right back to the beginning when I was talking about Glastonbury tour, it's known as a place of fairies and elementals. And where I live here is surrounded by woodlands. A lot of my videos open with me driving up the lane past the
Love
trees,
those.
yeah, and kind of nature is there. And I've really felt strongly always that was the goddess energy. That's kind of how I see the goddess. Um, I've been reading a book about Wicca recently, written by Raymond Buckland, who's a great authority on all things to do with witchcraft, and he's got a whole chapter in there talking about the fact that a lot of people think that a male witch is called a wizard or a warlock or something, but actually, if you're a witch, you're a witch, and you're working with the goddess energy. And as I think is becoming better understood in recent years, being a man or being a woman shouldn't really restrict you to being just one thing, you know. So in terms of the goddess rising, actually, I think that's what we're seeing even in political circles at the moment, which shows how powerful it is. Also, as the world gets closer and closer to the food shortages, and I don't want to be on a downer about that, but more and more the answer is for people to grow something themselves, and it's not just the food shortages; it's all the kind of contaminating stuff they put in food to make it last longer and make it easier to sell to us, like noodles. If you buy cheap noodles, they stick to the pan. If you buy expensive noodles, they don't stick to the pan. And the only difference is they've put something in that stops them sticking to the pan, which is,
Mm.
kind of scary. And so people are coming to understand that even if you don't have a garden, it's great to just grow, tomatoes or just whatever will grow on your windowsill. Even if you only get one meal out of it, you're you're nourishing yourself in a spiritual way, which goes much deeper than having a full belly of something you got in Pizza Hut or wherever. I don't know much about American fast food, unfortunately. I really like what I've had, but all we've got here is McDonald's, and we had KFC for a while, but they've all gone. But yeah, that is the goddess rising. People becoming more interested in their own health and realizing that the answers are kind of coming from the earth itself, actually from Mother Earth. And spiritually, we talk about Grandmother Moon, where all the great psychic insights are coming from, the whole universe, really. And we're seeing the feminine in that more and more. And really, when you talk about the feminine, and I'm not going to pull a card. I'm just going to show you the back of a card. This is the back of Keepers of the Light.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bring it up, try and keep it. Just going to knock the ring light off a sec so people can, yeah. You can see it, it's all overlaid Vesica Pisces, which is
Yes.
that symbol of birthing, Put that back now. And that really is what all the psychic stuff we do is about. It's anybody who ever invents a thing is birthing it into the world. Think of the invention of anything, like the invention of the telephone.
Mm-hmm.
That has been such a positive thing, such a wonderful ability to communicate. Whatever people say about the internet, now we can communicate across continents. We all know, for example, that people are upset with Vladimir Putin, but we all know that Russian people are kind of just like us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's going to be a lot less war going forward because of that invention, people see the internet as a very masculine kind of energy, but still it's birthing, it's giving birth to something. So there is the divine feminine, really. It's everywhere. And she is becoming stronger absolutely all the time. And I'm sure she's a part of all of us. And I'm sure the more we do to try and set her free in our lives, the better everybody will be within themselves and on a worldwide scale as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, in my own belief system, what I believe is if many lives that we've had, we've all been male and female, and maybe even something else. So is it any wonder? So I'm like, it's perfectly natural for these days for somebody to be born to be gay or have body dysmorphia, to feel like they're like I'm really should be this, so I welcome all the gay, trans, all of everybody, because it's just who we are becoming. It's who we are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think even when you have a woman transitioning to become a man, my daughter's she's my son now, but that happened to my own kid. And she's going through that now. It's still really, I think, the divine feminine that's spoken to her and is allowing her to do that. Yeah, I do.
Well, I actually follow an account on Instagram who it's a trans man who gave
Yeah.
birth to a baby, who is raising their baby non-binary. The baby does not have its pronoun is they, and
Yeah.
the baby has a very gender neutral name, and and people are like, well, how could you give birth to this baby? You're a man. And well, I just there's so much ignorance out there that it's but yeah. So I mean, you have that. I have friends that have transitioned from male to female, and I have
Yeah.
friends that have transitioned from female to male. I have
Yeah.
both. So, and I'm like, you do you, and I will support you.
Great, great. Because anything is possible, isn't it? That's the truth. That's what we're learning in the world right now. Anything is possible. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I just have one more card to bring up because the
Yeah.
Three of Cups. When you look at the Three of Cups, originally I had heard that it is the priestess marrying two women.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
So
that's what it looks like, actually. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, um, so I look to that as anything is possible, and how dare anybody say, "Well, you can't love this person, or you can't do this, or you can," because all of this is possible.
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely. And well, we know now because it's happening in the world, and some people don't like it, but I don't know what their motivation is in not liking it. There's a guy I know, he's not particularly a friend, but a guy I know who's always against things like that. And I just know it's because he's getting older and he wants the world to stay like it was when he was younger. And that's not a reason for anything, really, is it? We
No,
have to
that
keep
that's
evolving. Yeah.
that's fear-based, and I try not to live in fear too much, or
Yeah.
I try to process that out and shake it off. But yeah, that's what's going on in the United States. I mean, we're supposed to be separation of church and state, but that's not happening.
Mm,
So
yeah.
anyway, that's where we are there.
Right. It's not happening in UK either, actually. They're the state is trying to use the church more and more, and I don't know.
Well, that's why I'm liking these newer decks that are coming out with the Hierophant being a woman,
Yeah, yeah,
or having both a male and a female on there. I have
yeah,
some of those decks of cards too.
yeah.
All right.
Mm,
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I'm
okay.
wondering,
Yeah.
would you like, is there anything else that you can think of that you would like to say?
Well,
Or
just very briefly on that last one, right? In Wales, UK, we tend to think of Wales as a very mystical part of the UK. I think probably everywhere does if they live there. Um, and just very briefly on that last point, a lot of the bishops of the church in Wales are now women, which is just like radically different to just a few years ago. And yeah, there's a cathedral where I used to play the organ in the 1980s, that long ago, and that was always a very manly kind of church. And the bishop now who sits on the throne in that cathedral is a woman, and the dean is a woman, and it's just shows everything's possible. And those old structures, those old masculine structures, and actually the old view of what a woman had to be, uh, weren't real because they've changed. Maybe they were real at the time in some way, but they were never going to be real going forward because that's what we're doing. We're going forward. Yeah,
exactly, it's progress. We have to, keep that in mind. If things stayed the same all the time,
yeah, we
like
do. Yeah,
I had saw something where they said if nobody ever died, nobody would ever grow up,
yeah, yeah. That's so true. Yeah.
right? So
Mm,
in the sense, these tower moments that we have in our lives
mm.
are those teachable moments.
They are.
They
They
are.
really are. Yeah. And here we are in Mercury retrograde, and lots of people thinking they're having a tower moment, whether they are or not. But I'm sure some people are. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you have people going through their Saturn returns, and now
Hmm.
Mercury's retrograde, and something sitting conjunct on something, and yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
There's just so much. There's so much out there, and I love that. These are all
Mm.
tools.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. How about do you want to pull a card for, or do you feel
Okay.
called at all to pull a card for just for
Yeah.
anybody who watches this for the collective?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, right? I've got my two decks we've mentioned: Kyle Gray's Keepers of the Light and the Ascended Masters, which is so like Keepers of the Light. It's untrue, actually. This is from before Doreen Virtue claimed to have given it all up.
Right.
So I'd like to pull a card from this deck, if I may, and I'll
Absolutely.
just kind of say whatever comes to me, I guess.
Yeah.
So we'll have a quick shuffle.
I've
And
been using I've been using
Archangel Michael is on the back of these.
love that.
Yeah. And you can kind of see that they're just that bit older. They're a bit more kind of fussy. Well, here's the thing, right? I don't know what I'm going to say about this, but mother, wife, sister, daughter, Lady Nada. I'm going to just turn my light off again because it does glare. So, mother, wife, sister, daughter. So, what do I say about this? I guess this is just bigging up the goddess energy that we've been talking about,
Mhm.
And so, if anybody is watching and feels uncomfortable about the shift that's going on towards the goddess energy, and it's fair enough that people can't help feeling uncomfortable about it sometimes. I totally get that. Um, but it's all growing pains, it's transition. And here is Lady Nada, kind of looking at her most feminine, doesn't look masculine at all, until you look at those eyes and you realize there's definite determination there. And just having that energy doesn't mean for 1 minute that she lacks any femininity. You can just see it within her. So with that card, I just want to say to anybody who's got any concerns at all about either a transition in their own life or the way the world is transitioning at the moment, just don't fear it, because we've got a very, very calm kind of. Oh, I've got the light on again now. Sorry.
Okay.
We've just got a very, very calm, very beautiful scene here. And you don't actually have to stop being who you are, what you are, because you are who you are for a reason. We all have a soul contract, don't we, before we come to this earth. And so whatever makes you feel as if you're not supposed to be like you anymore, that's absolutely wrong. All the progress we're making in the world today is all about actually setting people more free to be more themselves. So just keep on keeping on, whatever you do. And if you can't find a way forward in your life at the moment, then know that a way forward will actually come to you, and that every step you take between now and then is actually a step along the road. I don't know if Ariel is watching. She very kindly sent me Twin Peaks Series 3 on a memory stick, because we can't see it anywhere in UK at the moment. I've only seen 1 and 2. But I was particular thing they say in Twin Peaks, if anyone remembers it from the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
One of the policemen in it is called Hawk, and he's Native American. And he says, the path to success is laid 1 stone at a time. So, you can still be this kind of Dolly Parton version of humanity. And you never have to kind of give that up. Excuse me. You just need to keep taking steps. And that's what we're all doing all the time.
Yeah.
I think even, Jane's channel, at one point there was me, and then there was Liz Crafts, and now there's Jane's channel, and Adrienne is chatting to a man, Matt, on Life Tarot, who's just started, and he is absolutely great. And so it grows, it changes, it evolves all the time, but there's nothing negative about it. It's just change. So keep laying those stones, keep walking that path, Lady
I
Nada.
love that. Yes, because
Right.
I have noticed in my channel, it constantly it goes through like a cycle,
Yeah.
and it'll
Yeah.
cycle through people, and I'll be like, well, I haven't seen so and so for a really long time, and it only means that
Mhm.
they've grown as far as they could with me, and now
Yeah.
they get it from somebody else, and I'm not offended by it in any way, shape or form.
No.
I'm like,
Sure, I agree. Yeah. One of my moderators once asked me, why are the people so enthusiastic and then they just go? And it's we should give ourselves a big pat on the back for that, because we were there, we walked, they were friends, we walked together in the house of God as friends, so to speak. And now, they've gone to higher things. And if we stop worrying about it, we realize we've gone to higher things as well. It's
yes,
a constant journey, isn't it? Yeah.
it is. It is. Well, and then I pulled from my Mother Mary deck.
Yeah.
And I love this card. It says, Our Lady of New Vision. And isn't that what we were talking about? There's a
Right.
there's it has words on the back, and I'll
Yeah.
quickly, it says,
Yeah.
"To outgrow that which you once held fast as a hallmark of spiritual progress. There is wisdom in honoring the need to challenge yourself and expand your horizons. The heart is ready to aspire and toil towards a new vision. There is no need to concern yourself with how it can manifest, only to dedicate yourself step by step in moving toward it. All else is held in grace."
Wonderful. Yeah.
Exactly what you were just saying. And I was
Oh,
just
wow.
sitting here shuffling these and without even looking, pulled that card and it just fit in so perfectly.
There you go. Well, but thank you for that card, Jane. That's wonderful. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for being
You're
here.
welcome.
And
Mm.
I will, I'm going to say goodbye to you and hang on just for a second.
Sure.
So,
Okay. But thank you for having me on your channel, Jane. It's been wonderful, and it's great to meet people I haven't met yet. Really, it's
yes,
always good. Always
I'm
good.
going I'm going to, this is recorded. I'm going to put all your information in the description box, your email and your channel, your two channels that I know of.
Uh-huh.
The garden, the one that you've been doing for the
Oh yeah,
garden,
yeah.
right? And
I
then the
haven't
Merlin.
uploaded to the garden channel for a while. I really slap on the wrist for that because I meant to do that every week. I must do one soon. But yeah, there's
Oh,
one called For Astro Truth as well. No, it's just Astro Truth, but there's some astrology there. But that's kind of I haven't. I kind of combined it all onto Merlin's Mountain. That's what I've
oh,
done.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Because I belong to all of them. Any channel you have,
great.
I've got them. I'm a member or I'm a.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for being here and allowing this time with me. I truly appreciate it. And I just thank you for everything, for helping me grow into.
Well, I thank you the same way, Jane. We're all here to support each other. Whether we're watching or we're making a video, or whatever we're doing. And I thank you very much for inviting me into your channel at this time. Really appreciate that. Yeah,
Oh, thank you. That means the world to me. Know that.
right.
All right. So
Sure.
thank you
Me
very
too.
much to anybody who's watching. You want to do what you say on your,
Okay. Love and light, blessings and peace.
there you go. And I always say, be kind, be love, and be.